My most controversial opinion is that bicyclists should not be allowed on roads because they always go significantly under the speed limit and it holds up traffic. I live in kind of a rural area with winding roads, so you can't just zip your car around a bicycle that's not riding on the edge of the road. They're riding in the middle of the road, just a 2-lane road. You can't zip around them because there's a curve, so you can't tell if another car is coming at you. So I literally spent 1.5 miles on a 40-mile-an-hour road going 22 miles an hour before I could go around a bicyclist. I don't understand why we tolerate bicyclists on the road, truly. They are participating in a recreational activity that hinders everyone else. We as drivers of cars would get a ticket by police if we went half of what the speed limit called for. If I was going 25 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, I am violating the law. So if a bicyclist cannot go the speed limit, if he cannot ride his bike according to the law that I am required to follow as a driver of a car, he should not be allowed on the road. He is, after all, this is not about climate change. It's not about environmentalism. He's definitely not going to work. He's just out there doing his recreational activity. Imagine if I just did my recreational activity in the middle of the road and forced everyone to accommodate their driving to it. If I was just like golfing out in the middle of the road. And I was like, oh, sorry guys, I know you're driving your kid to the park, you're trying to get to a doctor's appointment, you're going to church, but let me just finish up my putting and chipping here in the middle of the road, and you'll just have to hang back and wait because that's how we do things here. Bicyclists should be banned from roads. We should take a stand as a society on this. We should not tolerate it anymore. And I really want to say, I appreciate everyone's solidarity online. I posted this on my Twitter and on my Instagram, and I thought maybe I'd get some backlash for this opinion because it could be viewed as a controversial opinion. Nope. Everybody, or just about everyone, there's a few curmudgeons that are like, let's build bike lanes. And I'm like, no, you're not building me a putting and chipping green on the side of the road. I'm not gonna build you a bike lane. Obviously not. The vast majority of you agree, so I'm glad to know. I'm glad to know that we're all like-minded on this, that I have such an astute and prudent and smart audience. You guys, you people, you really get me, and I really love that about you all. Let's talk about Taylor Swift. So I have a confession to make. And I know some of you are gonna judge me for this. Some of you are going to really roll your eyes. I almost bought tickets to a Taylor Swift concert for her Eras tour. I'm going to be in the same city as Taylor Swift as one of her concerts in a couple of weeks. And I thought, oh my gosh, what are the chances? How could I miss this? And the reason why I almost bought Taylor Swift tickets is not because I like her now. I think she's woke. I think she's a feminist. I don't even like her music now. But in college and in high school, I loved her music. I loved her Speak Now album back when she wrote her own songs, back when she's a brilliant songwriter, right? You can think whatever you like about whether she's talented at singing. You can think whatever you like about her politics, but she is a brilliant songwriter. And those were fabulous songs. I almost bought a ticket, but I didn't because I could not bring myself to pay $8,000 for a ticket to Taylor Swift just for nostalgia's sake. But it did get me thinking. It got me thinking. The reason that I almost bought this ticket is not because I am currently a fangirl of Taylor Swift. It's because on her Eras tour, she's playing all of her biggest hits. She's playing all of her old songs. So it's not just Gen Zers who are turning out to these concerts because they love her current music. It's all the millennials, people my age, who are going to see Taylor Swift because she's singing Dear John. That's actually what I saw she posted on her Twitter the other day that I was like, oh my gosh, I should go and watch this because, it's what I listened to in college. Here's the thing about Taylor Swift. Here's the thing. The real reason that her Eras tour is such a mega hit is not because she has the same, it's not even charisma, but it's not because she has the same magnetism, the same draw as a boy band, right? As the Beatles or as the Jonas Brothers had in their heyday. It's not because she has it's not because people have an obsession with her. It's because of what her songs, and now I'm talking about her classic songs, right? Like, let's just keep this conversation contained to her Speak Now album, the one that came out when I was in college. This album and the stories that she told in the lyrics of the songs on this album are not what she is now. Because right now she's super woke, right? She's friends with Lena Dunham. She's pro-abortion. She's anti-Marsha Blackburn because of politics. She's #rainbow, none of which I agree with. I think all of that is ridiculous and stupid. But the reason that Taylor Swift is so famous and the reason that she is selling out stadiums, multiple nights of stadiums across the country, is because she's not selling that type of feminism or leftism in her concerts. What she's selling and what people find so appealing is she's selling a story of a young woman who wants what universally young women actually want deep down. They might be afraid to admit it because culture tells us that we shouldn't just be hoping for our Prince Charming. They might be afraid to admit that they want to be a wife, they want to be a mother, because culture tells them they should have aspirations for a career, the STEM field ideally, more than wanting to be a wife and a mother. But Taylor Swift was just a little girl dreaming of Prince Charming and of a wedding and of forever. And that speaks to something in every woman. It's a little bit like what we were talking about last week with the Kardashians, how the Kardashians are clearly messed up, right? Clearly promiscuous, clearly don't have their priorities in line. But the reason that they are so appealing to so many young people in our country is because they kind of, sort of, in a weird way, center their show and their image that they portray to us as being centered on family values. Like they celebrate when they get pregnant every time, these gender reveals and these announcements to their family that they're pregnant, and they show their weddings online, and they always are posting about their children and their children being friends with their siblings' children, these cousins having a close bond. And it speaks to the fact that most people want a close-knit family. They want marriage, they want children, they want to celebrate these things. And even though the Kardashians aren't really people that embrace family values, they use family values to achieve their status as being super famous. It's not because of their luxury. It's not because of their promiscuity. It's actually because they pretend to portray family values. That's the same thing with Taylor Swift and her online following or her online mob. It depends on which side of it you're on, the Swifties. I have an interesting point to tell you about that too. But first, I want to talk to you about Cozy Earth sheets. So I talk about Cozy Earth sheets a lot. I have them on my bed at my house right now. I love them. I know you'll love them too. And I thought to myself, listen, Cozy Earth has been a sponsor on this show for quite some time. And I talked to you about how much I like these sheets and how they're soft and they're luxurious. But I have failed up until now to describe exactly what I mean by that or what sets them apart from other soft sheets or other luxurious sheets. So let me describe this to you. Back when I was in college and shortly after college, I had a set of sheets that were called t-shirt sheets. And they were my favorite sheets on the face of the earth. The problem, they were so soft. The problem was, being t-shirt sheets, they got really baggy on my bed really quickly. So once I grew out of being in my early 20s, I didn't want sheets that were baggy on my bed anymore. And Cozy Earth sheets remind me of those t-shirt sheets in the sense that they are just that soft, they are that luxurious, but they are adult sheets. They are sheets that do not get baggy. They are so nice. I have the white ones on my bed because that's the color theme of my bedroom, but they have so many different colors that you can choose from. And right now you can save up to 35% on Cozy Earth. Just go to cozyearth.com/Liz35. Be sure to enter my promo code Liz35 at checkout to save up to 35%. That's cozyearth.com/Liz35. Okay, so Taylor Swift may be super woke, she may be pro-abortion, she may be #rainbow, she may be anti-Blackburn, she might be friends with Lena Dunham, all these very inadvisable positions to take and life choices to make. However, the reason that she is drawing these incredible crowds on her Eras tour is because she's not selling those things that she personally stands for. She's selling tradition. She's selling traditional gender roles. She's selling the idea of a little girl dreaming of her Prince Charming, dreaming of her wedding, dreaming of falling in love forever and creating a family. She's selling a fairy tale. And this is something that speaks to young women all across the country. It's why she's selling out the stores. In a sense, it should give us culturally just a sliver of hope. Because the left is trying so hard to brainwash young women, to tell them to hate their bodies, to tell them to hate being feminine, to tell them that men are better, to tell them to try to pretend to be men, to want their career more than they want a family, to prioritize prioritize travel for work and overtime over spending time with your children and flexibility and tending to your marriage and your home and your real life. But young women aren't so easily fooled, apparently, because young women are turning out a lot more for Taylor Swift than they do for Hillary Clinton. A lot more for Taylor Swift than they do for the angry feminists that are trying to sell feminism. And even Taylor Swift's fandom, they call themselves Swifties. They are uber supportive of Taylor Swift. And I kind of say this laughingly because, my goodness, you say one critical thing about Taylor Swift and they will descend on you like a mob, like a swarm. But the thing about Swifties is they will descend on you like a mob if you criticize Taylor Swift, but they will descend on someone as a mob to defend Taylor against men who they believe have wronged her, right? So think about this Speak Now album that Taylor Swift is bringing back to life on this tour. The theme of this album is a reflection of her love life at the time, how she had boyfriends that didn't work out, boyfriends that wronged her, the one that got away, all the classic love story themes. And at the time, Swifties, and this was pretty good detective work, deciphered who exactly she was talking about in each song. Who she was talking about, I think like Back to December was Taylor Lautner and Dear John was John Mayer, and Swifties had all of these, and these were based on relationships that Taylor Swift had engaged in the public eye, and so the clues were there, the Easter eggs, as Swifties call them, but they defend her when they feel that men wrong her. And here's the material point. First, it is encouraging to see that our culture has not completely extinguished young women's desire for love and family and children and tradition and forever. But also, Taylor Swift leads her fans on. She leads her fans on by making bad choices informed by feminism, because she's embraced in her personal life the opposite of what she's selling her fans. So she engages in these relationships that don't work and that in which men wrong her because she is living her life according to the tenets of leftism and feminism. And yet she comes into these stadiums and she sells them out because she's selling her fans tradition. So she's telling them to embrace or playing at their heartstrings, embracing tradition when she herself is embracing something else. It's a little bit, it's more than a little bit. It's an interesting conundrum to watch unfold, but I cannot get over the images of these stadiums filled with young women who want not the feminism that Taylor Swift has embraced, but the tradition that she's singing about. All right, the other thing that's going on this summer that's worth noting is the Summer of Pride. What is the Summer of Pride, you might ask? Well, the Summer of Pride, all right, guys, little sidebar here, just a warning. We've posted as much of this episode as we can. We've posted the rest of it here on YouTube, but just a little forewarning. We did have to censor some things because, well, YouTube sucks. So you can find the fully uncensored version of this episode on rumble.com/Liz Wheeler. You can suffer through the rest of the episode with little bleeps and blurbs gone right here on YouTube if you have the stomach for it. But I wanted to let you know the fully uncensored version is on rumble.com/Liz Wheeler. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Well, the Summer of Pride is what Admiral Rachel Levine lived the first 50 years as Richard Levine. Yes, this one. Admiral Rachel Levine says that we're not going to end Pride Month at the end of June. No, you think we're 3 days away from the end of Pride Month? You're probably waiting with bated breath for Pride Month to end. No, it's going to be the Summer of Pride, and this is why. Take a look at this video.
Hello, my name is Admiral Rachel Levine, and I have the honor of being the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month, and actually, let's declare it a Summer of Pride. Happy Summer of Pride.
Let's not and say we did. Let's not declare it a Summer of Pride. Let's end Pride Month I can't even believe that I'm calling it Pride Month, that month formerly known as June, that has been hijacked by the radical leftists. This is very interesting. This is not a coincidence that quote unquote Rachel Levine says that this should be the Summer of Pride. This is a deliberate decision, a deliberately constructed strategy that the left is launching. You might have noticed that so-called Pride Month was a little bit different this year than it has been in past years. Sure, companies have sometimes displayed rainbow flags this year, but no Pride Month has ever been like the Pride Month that we are experiencing right now, where it is just shoved in our faces, quite literally shoved in our faces with these pride parades and these drag queen shows that are vulgar, that are sexually graphic, that seem to have a recurring theme of male-on-male leather bondage. It's just horrendous, grotesque, gruesome, graphic, explicit stuff that we're supposed to accept, or else we're bigots, right? Or else we're anti-gay, we're anti-trans. Something different is happening this summer. We can all acknowledge that. And Admiral Rachel Levine is the one announcing the Summer of Pride. And the Summer of Pride, the point of Summer of Pride, they are hoping to achieve three things by branding this entire summer the Summer of Pride. They have a goal, and it is three-pronged, and I'm going to show you exactly how they are achieving or hoping to achieve their three-pronged goal. And I'm going to show you this via a series of videos. First, I want to talk to you about Students for Life. 2024 is right around the corner, and both parties recognize that young voters are going to play a key role in deciding the upcoming election. Students for Life Action is the only national pro-life organization working to turn young people against abortion. And as a result, they're facing constant attacks from pro-abortion radicals, including Antifa, and a group called Jane's Revenge. It's the same group, actually, that organized protests outside the homes of Supreme Court justices, the same group that vandalized crisis pregnancy centers. Great group. Students for Life Action has not only faced these attacks, they've even had to take legal action against universities who have tried to silence them for speaking the truth about abortion. I can tell you that no other group gets under the skin of pro-abortion radicals more than Students for Life Action. But frankly, standing up to the pro-abortion mob day in and day out can be grueling. It's exhausting. I would know. That's why I'm asking you to join me in encouraging these young pro-life leaders. Text Liz to 20401 to sign your statement of support for pro-life students. This simple action will go a long way to lift up the next generation and encourage them to not back down in the face of attacks by pro-abortion radicals. That's LIZ to 20401 to tell pro-life students you have their backs in the battle to end abortion. Text Liz to 20401 to tell pro-life students on the front lines that you have their backs. Okay, so the Summer of Pride that was announced by Rachel Levine, there's essentially three goals that the left is trying to achieve with this Summer of Pride. And I'm going to show you what these three goals are and how the left is going to try to achieve them via a series of videos. So first, we're going to start with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was trending all over the internet 2 days ago because she, a year and a half later, comes out against Florida's parental rights in education bill, the bill that the left intentionally, euphemistically, and dishonestly dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill. You and I know that Don't Say Gay never appeared in that bill. It does not appear in the law. The law itself is, 8 pages? And the purpose of the law is to prevent sexually explicit gender ideology from being taught to children in primary grades, kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, and to prohibit school staff, teachers, administrators, counselors, etc., from hiding from parents when their children are, quote unquote, transitioning on school grounds. That's it. That's all the parental rights in education law does in Florida. It has nothing to do with not being allowed to say the word gay. Nothing at all. But of course, this is what Kamala Harris says in response. In The Advocate magazine, this was an article published on Wednesday, June 21st, Kamala Harris says, you look at Florida, the Don't Say Gay bill, and what this has meant for LGBTQ plus teachers who are now afraid. She said, it's outrageous. She said, I'm looking at this 20-something Florida teacher who has dedicated themselves to one of the most honorable professions. And the teacher who is happily married or in a committed relationship is hesitant to hang a picture of their family because they worry that if a kid in their class asks, who is that? It will spark a discussion about same-sex relationships and they will risk losing their job. Outrageous, she said. Now, what's funny about this is on MSNBC last year during the debate over this bill, MSNBC hosted a teacher, a gay man, who was becoming teary. He was weeping on MSNBC, on air, very embarrassing for him, because he deliberately posted a picture of he and his gay lover at the front of the class in order to elicit questions from his students about his sex life. He did that deliberately, intentionally, so that he could talk to kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders about his own sexual preferences, about his sex acts, about his gay relationship with another man. No, I think we can all agree that this is wildly inappropriate. This is not what Kamala Harris is characterizing it. She's deliberately lying about this, but it plays into what one of the goals of the left this summer. They are activating this plan this summer. We are watching this play out. It is incumbent on us to recognize that when they engage in this performative behavior, what they are trying to achieve, because if we don't recognize what they're doing, we won't be able to stop it. Kamala Harris is deliberately misrepresenting this bill because the left is trying to nuke parental rights this summer. The left is trying to separate children from their parents. The left is trying to redefine so-called children's rights to essentially place children under the authority of the state instead of under the dominion of their parents. We are watching this play out. That's the first prong of what this strategy entails. And they're making, this is their push. They've conditioned the population and they're making the push. The second thing that they're trying to achieve this summer is best exemplified with the following video. This is from the Pride Parade in New York. It is a group of quote unquote queer people who are marching. And as you can plainly see on the screen here, we're blurring out a topless woman for obvious reasons. And they are chanting, we're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your children. That's what they're chanting. We're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your children. Now, were they saying this ironically? Because that's what we have observed. That's what we have acknowledged, the reality of what the left is doing. Were they saying this to try to mock conservatives who levy this valid accusation at the left? Probably. But here's the thing. In the Republican Party right now, there is a divide about this particular video. Some people in the Republican Party are saying, don't pay any attention to them. They're just being performative. They're trying to get your reaction. They're being ironic. They're trying to provoke you. And another half of the conservative movement is taking what this group's saying quite literally, like, listen to what they're saying. They're telling you what they're trying to do. They're telling you they're coming after your children. And both of these takes are incorrect. Sometimes I think that we desire, as people, I know I certainly desire to see things in a very black and white way, to see things in a very absolutist way. And in this case, if you view this as either, oh, irony, dismiss it, or, oh, they're telling us what they're saying, they're signaling to us what they're doing, then you are missing the nuance. And in this case, the nuance is very important. The nuance, and this is the correct take on this video, is that, yes, they intended to say this with irony, but can it really be irony when they are, in fact, coming for our children? And the answer to that is no. It can't be real irony, authentic irony, if what they're saying, intending to mock it, is actually what they're doing. So maybe they intended this with irony. But it's also the reality of what we're facing. The left, under the guise of LGBTQIA justice, is coming for our children. Look at the state of California. There is a bill in the California State Assembly. It's Assembly Bill 665. And this bill would allow therapists, counselors, to quote unquote emancipate children as young as 12 years old unilaterally from the custody of the child's parents in the name of gender ideology. So if a 12-year-old in the state of California says, Mom, I know I was born a boy, but I want to be a girl. I want to go on pharmaceuticals that will chemically castrate me. I want my genitals removed. I want breast implants. I want you to call me female pronouns. And the parents say, no, son, we're not going to do that to you. We're going to get you the help you need. That 12-year-old, if this bill becomes law in California, that 12-year-old can tattle to a therapist, and that therapist can remove that child from the custody of his parents, from his home, and place him in a group home for transgender youth that would fast track him to hormones that would chemically castrate him and eventually surgery that would permanently mutilate his body and his reproductive system. That's happening in the state of California as we speak. So can this group, this Pride Parade, can we label what they're saying as irony when they say we're coming for your children? Now, they might have intended it to be mocking, but it's not the same. Back in our nation's history, the song Yankee Doodle was actually not a battle song that originated with the American patriots. It was an insult that the British had for Americans. They called us Yankee Doodles. It was an ad hominem attack. It was an insult. And what the American soldiers did, the American colonists, is they co-opted that. They co-opted that and said, yeah, you're right, we are Yankee Doodles. And they took it over. They owned it. They took that insult away from the British by making up this silly little song about it. You could argue that Elizabeth Warren did the same thing with the insult nasty woman. The left kind of did that. They took an ad hominem attack against them and they said, yes, we are. That is what we are. And they co-opted it. They owned it and they took away some of the teeth from that insult by the way that they co-opted it. That is not what is happening in this New York Pride Parade. They are not co-opting an ad hominem attack, an insult against them by owning it, by embracing it, by mocking it, by treating it as irony. They can't because it's true. It's not name calling. It's not a silly insult. It's the reality of what we're facing. Can you imagine your 12-year-old worrying that your 12-year-old, all that your 12-year-old would have to do is fall victim to a TikTok that told them about gender ideology? And by the way, this will come as no surprise. The sponsor of this bill is State Senator Scott Wiener from California. And the way that he describes this bill, I'm going to read you what he says in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about American Hartford Gold. I don't mean to sound all doom and gloom, but I do feel like we are on the brink of a massive financial crisis. First, we had Silicon Valley Bank collapse, right? We all watched that in horror. Then we had Signature Bank collapse. Then we had First Republic Bank collapse. All the while, our Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, admitted to us that the FDIC and the Fed, who operate hand in hand, are going to pick and choose which banks to rescue and which not to rescue, based essentially on wokeness. So my question is our money really safe in this system? And I'll be honest and tell you, I don't feel confident that it is. That's why I highly recommend that you do what I did, call the only precious metals dealer that I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple and easy to protect your savings and retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So do not wait. Call them now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Again, the phone number is 866-781-7499. Or if you prefer text messaging, you can text Liz to 65532. So California State Senator Scott Wiener, who is a co-sponsor of this bill, Assembly Bill 665, that's the Assembly version of it. The Senate has a similar one. Senator Scott Wiener describes this bill that would allow a therapist to steal custody of a troubled child from that child's parents in the name of gender ideology, describes the bill as follows, and I quote, "This bill protects children. It makes children safer. It makes children healthier." Does that give you chills up your arm? Like that creepy chills? What Scott Wiener is doing is saying that children are better off in the custody of the state than they are in the custody of their parents, if their parents are unwilling to trans them. So if you are not a far leftist parent, then Scott Wiener thinks your child is better off, safer, and healthier in the custody of bureaucrats like himself. Talk about dystopian. Talk about Orwellian. And yet Scott Wiener doesn't care, because this is after all the second prong of this is the second prong of the three goals that Democrats and liberals, far leftists, are determined to achieve over this summer of Pride. This has a different level as well. We have to remember, and I know that this is one of those times I'm going to get emails from people saying, Liz, this sounds like a conspiracy theory. Liz, this is awfully hyperbolic. But listen to me very closely. Whenever I'm explaining something that may sound controversial, I not only give you my opinion about it, I show you how I inform my opinion, how I form it. Meaning, I show you what my opinion, I tell you what my opinion is, I share my thought process with you, and then I show you the research, the facts, the studies, the substantiation that I used to build that opinion. And that is what I'm going to do now. Part of the transgender ideology is advocacy for pedophilia. This is inherent to the queer theory ideology. Pedophilia is. You can read the founding document of queer theory written by, it's called Thinking Sex. It's written by a lesbian named Gail Rubin. She defends child pornography. She advocates for pedophiles. She calls them, quote, men who love underage youth. It's so disturbing. But we can see this in our country if we allow ourselves not to be blinded by the left's accusations of, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're a bigot. We can see this for ourselves. This is from Redux Magazine, a report that says the first openly transgender elected representative in the US has been arrested on 4 counts of distributing child sexual abuse materials. Stacey Marie Loughton, that's the transgender name of this individual, had been elected to the New Hampshire House on 3 separate occasions. A pedophile distributing child sexual abuse materials. That's child pornography. And meanwhile, over on Twitter, Elon Musk poked the leftist hornet's nest by saying that if you call someone else cisgender on Twitter and you do this in a repeated manner, that it's going to be labeled a slur. It's going to be labeled as harassment on Twitter. He said because the word is an insult. The word is a slur. Obviously, the left just went wild over this, but Elon is correct. He's completely correct about this. The term cisgender was invented. It was coined by a pedophile. Sarah is censored is the name of this is the handle of a Twitter account that did a report on the word cisgender. And she writes, the term cisgender was coined by a German sexologist who also stated, quote, the sensuality that spontaneously unfolds between a child and an adult is something wonderful. Volkmar Sigusch first used the terms cisgender and cissexual in 1991. This is what he wrote. Speaking of cissexuals, if there are transsexuals, logically, there must be cissexuals. One is not to be thought of without the other. I've allowed myself to introduce the terms cissexualism, cissexual, cisgender, etc. Coined by a pedophile. Someone who advocates for the sexual abuse of small children. This stuff is so heavy, it's so grotesque, and this is part of what the left is pushing for this summer. This is their next frontier. They are trying to sever the relationship between parents and children. They're trying to abolish or nuke parental rights. All leads to their biggest agenda item for the summer. It's also, by the way, before we even get to that, it's also why we have to continue to crush Bud Light when Bud Light releases a commercial pretending to appeal to us. We hear you, the Bud Light or the Anheuser-Busch CEO said to their valued customers, we hear your concerns. They released this advertisement that's supposed to appeal to middle America. And then meanwhile, in Toronto, Bud Light is sponsoring Toronto Pride. We can play this video. It's so disturbing. It's so disgusting. And look at the sponsor on the side of the screen. We can play this while I'm still talking here because there are going to be some people who are not going to want to see this. This is, I don't even know how to describe this. It's demonic. It's satanic. And look at that. Look at what's on the side of this stage at Toronto Pride. It's a Bud Light banner. Bud Light made a deliberate decision to sponsor Toronto Pride. This is what the Summer of Pride stands for. So we have to crush them. We have to crush Bud Light. They cannot be allowed to exist in the marketplace if they are going to push this agenda. So this all brings us to the largest point. What is the left trying to achieve by their performative behavior, their explicit sexual parades, pushing pride in everyone's face, the sexualization of children? What are they doing? Why is Kamala Harris lying about the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida? Why is California trying to separate children from their parents? Why are they doing this? And the answer to this can be found in a tweet from Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's bring this up on the screen if we could. Kamala Harris tweeted yesterday, this was on June 22nd that she tweeted this. She said, yesterday, the Equality Act was reintroduced in Congress. The House and Senate must pass this long overdue legislation to guarantee every LGBTQI plus American the right to live freely and openly. And in this short, ridiculous tweet, we find our answer. The reason that the left is engaging in what the majority of Americans consider to be offensive behavior, crossing these lines in such an egregious and offensive way, is because they hope that their performative behavior causes a conservative backlash. They hope that we will be outraged, that we will be disgusted, that we will push back against what they're doing, and they hope that they can brand our backlash as not just being a group of parents standing up for parental rights, or a group of concerned citizens standing up for children who are being sexualized. The left hopes that they can brand our backlash against this graphic and grotesque performance as being anti-gay. Anti-gay. Because the left is counting on the polling that shows that 2/3, I think it's actually more than 2/3, I think it's like 70% of the American people are okay with same-sex relationships and same-sex sexual behaviors. The left is hoping that they can conflate that public opinion on just gay with the transgender ideology and the sexualization of children and the attempt to abolish parental rights in the name of gender ideology. And if the left can successfully brand our outrage, then the left knows they will have an opportunity to say, listen, these Republican bigots want to deprive gay people of equal rights in our country. They are intolerant, hateful bigots, and therefore we must codify into law equal rights for LGBTQI plus people. Otherwise, conservatives will deprive them of any opportunity to, what is it that she said? To live freely and openly. But that's not what the Equality Act is. The Equality Act would codify the transgender ideology into every aspect of our lives. The Equality Act adds gender identity to the definition of sexual orientation as a protected class in our country. So every single person in our country would be forced to participate in radical gender ideology, or they would be breaking the law. If you're a medical provider and you're Christian, or you're scientific, you have biblical beliefs about sex, you couldn't practice medicine. Otherwise, you would face lawsuits accusing you of discriminating against a protected class of people. If you're a teacher and you wanna brainwash children, condition them in gender ideology, you'd be allowed to do that. And a Christian that refuses to do that would be fired because they're violating federal law. Locker rooms and bathrooms for women, women's sports, charities, adoption agencies, even churches. Everything would be infected with gender ideology because it would be codified into law. But when the left presents the Equality Act like it is in reality, the way I just described it to you, the majority of people in our nation don't want that. And so what the left is doing is they are intentionally being performative and outrageous and offensive, hoping to spark our backlash so that the left can define our backlash as being anti-gay and convince the majority of people in our country who don't care about gay that we have to codify quote-unquote rights for gay people via the Equality Act into law. And voila, by the end of the summer, you have an Equality Act that has become law that forces the transgender ideology on all of us. The left does not act in a coincidental way. The left is nothing but strategic. They know exactly what they're doing. They didn't accidentally go too far. They didn't unintentionally start offending people with the way that they've conducted this Pride Month. They know exactly what they're doing. They are, in fact, doing what the Pride Parade in New York was chanting. They are, in fact, coming for our children. It's just a matter of whether we believe them or not. And by the way, The reason we're even at this point is because Republicans for decades have been naive. Republicans for decades have, out of the goodness of our hearts, but out of naivete, have said, you know what? If people want to do whatever they want to do in their own homes, that's fine. Whatever. We should allow gay marriage. If people want to be in gay relationships. Why? We don't want to force our religious beliefs on them. Who are we to use the government to say what's right and what's wrong and what the definition of marriage is? That really shouldn't be something that we use government for. And this attitude from Republicans, it's libertarianism is what it is. This attitude from Republicans has led us to this point. It's led us to the point that the left never intended to have a neutral playing field where people just mind their own business and do whatever they want in the comfort of their own homes. The left never for a second intended to have an absence of morality in law. They always intended to get Republicans to step back and withdraw real morality while they stepped forward and inserted false morality into law. And that's exactly what we're seeing. But Republicans like Chris Christie is a perfect example of this. Chris Christie went on Brian Kilmeade's show on Fox and said that he would oppose, as president, any laws that would prohibit trans surgeries on children. And the reason that he stated for why he would oppose laws for this exemplifies exactly why we are where we are today in our country with the Summer of Pride. Take a listen to this.
So if a 14-year-old comes home and says, I really want to start switching genders, that's the parent's decision?
Absolutely. I tell you, it's more of a parent's decision than it is a governor's decision, for goodness sakes, Brian. You really think that Sarah Huckabee Sanders should be making this decision for children in Arkansas? I love Sarah. I think she's a great person and a really good governor. But I don't think she would ever allow the government to substitute her judgment as a mother for their judgment. And that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't want any government official coming in and telling me what decisions I can help my child through and how I should do it. And I want those decisions to be made by parents, not by the government.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we are facing the Summer of Pride. Because Republicans who are so stupid and so naive and so ignorant of how our country works have allowed us to get to this point where the left was always going to play offense. The left was never wanted equality under the law. They never wanted tolerance for alternative lifestyles. They always wanted to force this down our throats. Chris Christie clearly doesn't even understand the way that our Constitution works, let alone the laws that are on our books right now. We already have laws on our books that prohibit the abuse of children. Parents don't have a parental right to abuse their children. They don't have a parental right to sexually abuse their children. Parents aren't even allowed to take their children on the floor of a casino, for goodness sake. Parents aren't allowed to take their child into an establishment whose primary purpose is serving alcohol. We have laws on the books that they don't supersede parental rights, but they prohibit parents from abusing their children. And what is transgender surgery for children? It's abuse. It's bodily abuse. It's sexual abuse. Of course, it's in the purview of governments, state governments, and yes, the federal government to prohibit parents from inflicting this abuse on children. But as long as we have Republicans like Chris Christie who are at the forefront of this fight, then the Summer of Pride is going to continue with more success than we ought to allow it. Because we have the power and we have the authority to put a stop to it if only we have the stomach to fight. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know this was kind of a heavy show, and I appreciate you for bearing with me. This is a really critically important topic, as you know, as I know. We have to fight this fight, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's graphic, even when it's grotesque. But the thought that I will leave you with today is cleanse your mind from this. Think about, instead, how we should ban bicyclists from being on roads when they don't drive the speed limit. That is the defining issue of this show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.